On cosmic scales, galaxies are expected to drift apart in an orderly way, without any preferred direction. The idea feels intuitive because the expansion of space, viewed from afar, seems to erase all preference. Greater distance means greater recession, and on average every point in the universe should witness the same spectacle in every direction. And yet, it takes only a tiny constraint, hidden in the coldest details of the cosmic microwave background, to make that rule suddenly unstable. The common picture appears plausible because it works almost all the time. Nearby galaxies can dance with one another, attract, merge, assemble into groups and clusters. At vast distances, however, the expanding fabric of space carries everything along, and statistics overwhelm the exceptions. On average, there should be no privileged cosmic direction. And still, at some point, a few astronomers began to wonder whether a collective motion might exist. A large-scale flow not tied to any single concentration of mass. The destabilizing detail was this. Such a motion would not be sought by observing galaxies directly, but by studying the oldest light in the cosmos and how that light is ever so slightly contaminated as it passes through enormous clusters of matter. To understand why this is delicate, you have to stand on a narrow boundary between two languages. On one side is the language of expansion. Galaxies are not streaking through space like bullets. It is the space between them that grows. On the other side is the language of peculiar velocities, motions superimposed on the expansion, generated by irregularities in the distribution of mass. A galaxy cluster is not merely a patch of light. It is a cosmic city made of hundreds or thousands of galaxies, searing hot gas, and above all dark matter. Gravity binds that system together and, in doing so, imparts motion. If clusters move relative to the rest frame, defined by the cosmic microwave background, that motion leaves a signature, minuscule, but measurable. Here an effect enters the scene that sounds almost like magic, though it is hard physics. The Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect, and in particular its kinematic variant. The cosmic microwave background is a bath of photons filling the universe. When those photons pass through the hot gas in a cluster, they can scatter off electrons and change energy. If the cluster is at rest with respect to the radiation, the distortion has one form. If the cluster is moving, the distortion shifts ever so slightly, like a whisper inside a symphony. The trouble is that this whisper is weaker than almost everything else. Instrumental noise, emission from our own galaxy, radio sources, dust, even our own motion through space, which introduces a strong temperature dipole across the sky. In the early 2000s, a NASA satellite, WMAP, mapped the microwave sky with a precision that at the time seemed definitive. Its maps solidified modern cosmology, measuring the geometry and parameters of the universe with remarkable refinement. But precisely because WMAP was so sensitive, its data could be used to attempt something almost prohibitive: searching for a correlation between the positions of galaxy clusters and tiny temperature variations in the cosmic microwave background. Alexander Kashlinsky and collaborators pursued this path. The idea was simple to state and brutal to execute. Take many clusters, stack the signal in just the right way, and a common trend, a cosmic wind, might emerge. If that wind were real and coherent across enormous distances, it would not be the mere consequence of a single local attractor. It would point to something about the structure of the universe on truly gigantic scales. When the group published their first results, the story became instantly compelling. They reported a collective motion of clusters toward the same direction at high velocities relative to the cosmic microwave background. The chosen label, dark flow, did the rest. It evoked an invisible current sweeping vast volumes of the universe along, as if deep space itself had a gradient, a slope. The most extreme temptation followed almost automatically. If an immense region is moving together, how can it do so without an even larger cause, perhaps beyond what we can see? At that point the narrative seems ready to vault beyond the edge of the observable universe, that sphere of reality accessible to the light that has had time to reach us since the birth of the cosmos. The edge is not a wall, it is a limit of information. Beyond it, there is almost certainly more space and more galaxies, but their light, because of accelerated expansion and finite time, will never speak to us. And this is where the word attraction becomes a mental trap. In general relativity, gravity is not a rope cast into the dark. It is not a message that must outrun light in order to tug on something that is receding. Gravity is the curvature of spacetime, and changes in the gravitational field propagate as waves, yes, but within a geometry already set by initial conditions. That opens a conceptual doorway, at once fascinating and unsettling. What lies beyond our horizon today may have influenced our region when, in the beginning, everything was far closer. Before inflation and expansion rendered entire portions of reality unreachable, those portions could have been causally connected. If an enormous inhomogeneity exists on scales larger than what we can see, we might still reside within its field. Like a boat feeling a current generated by a distant continent no longer visible above the horizon. Yet whenever a hypothesis seems perfect, nature presents the bill in the form of technical details. If the dark flow exists, it must be measured robustly. And measuring a velocity through the kinematic Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect is nothing like measuring a Doppler shift in a stellar spectrum. It requires models of the gas in clusters, estimates of electron optical depth, removal of contaminants, careful sample selection, filtering of sky maps, and above all ruthless control of uncertainties. A signal can appear with one choice of filter and vanish with another. It can be amplified by a dipole residual not perfectly subtracted. It can arise from spurious correlations between the distribution of clusters and structures in our own galaxy. This is a territory where cosmology meets the art of data analysis, and one misplaced fold can turn a shadow into a monster. Still, the narrative point remains. If a coherent motion truly existed on enormous scales, it would represent a crack in the cosmological principle, the idea that, on large scales, the universe is homogeneous and isotropic. It would not mean that physics is wrong. It would mean that the initial conditions left a larger imprint than expected, or that we are underestimating how structures form, or that anisotropies exist on scales beyond our horizon. At that point the question would not be, what is pulling us, but what global geometry are we inhabiting without realizing it? And the story, rather than closing around an invisible culprit, would open onto a deeper doubt. Are we truly interpreting the silence of the sky correctly, or are we mistaking noise for a message? This is where the second act begins, where the promise of definitive confirmation collides with a new level of precision. The European Space Agency's Planck satellite observed the cosmic microwave background with higher resolution and sensitivity than WMAP, especially at high frequencies where dust and many contaminants can be better controlled. If the dark flow were a large, real effect, Planck should have seen it more clearly, or at least confirmed a coherent trend. But when different groups used Planck data to search for the kinematic Sunyaev-Zeldovich signal across large cluster samples, the picture grew less dramatic. Some analyses found signals compatible with lower velocities. Others found no statistically significant preferred direction. In other words, the universe repeated its favorite lesson. A hint is not enough. What matters is convergence of methods. This does not mean the idea is dead. It means it has been returned to its natural place, that of a hypothesis that must survive reproducibility. In cosmology, reproducibility is complicated. You cannot rerun the universe, but you can rerun the analyses 100 different ways and see whether the result holds. You can change the cluster catalog, use X-ray or optical selections, check the masses, verify redshift depth, simulate skies with the same instrumental noise, and ask how often a similar flow appears by chance. You can check whether the supposed direction suspiciously aligns with known observational directions, such as the ecliptic, or with systematic residuals. And it is precisely in these tests that a fascinating phenomenon often loses its aura of inevitability and returns to being one possibility among many. So what remains of the original question, the one that seems to point beyond the boundary of the observable universe? What remains is the most fertile part. The fact that the universe, though astonishingly uniform, is not perfectly uniform, and that the largest scales remain an open laboratory. What remains is the theme of matter flows on cosmic scales, which do exist. Galaxies are not randomly scattered, they trace filaments, fall into gravitational wells, and entire regions can exhibit coherent motions due to vast overdensities. What remains, too, is the awareness that our own galaxy and our local group have a velocity relative to the cosmic microwave background, and that part of that motion can be explained by known structures, while another part is harder to attribute precisely. The cosmos does not need a monster beyond the universe to be complex. Gravity, expansion, and a slightly imperfect beginning are enough. And yet the temptation to look beyond does not fade, because there is a philosophical point that science itself encourages. The observable horizon is not a boundary of reality, it is a boundary of knowledge. If fluctuations exist on scales larger than our observable sphere, we will never map them directly, but we might feel their indirect effects. Subtle anisotropies, unlikely alignments, matter currents more coherent than expected, or an imprint in the way the cosmic microwave background distributes its hot and cold spots. The question then becomes an exercise in scientific self-restraint. Where is the line between a genuine clue of new physics and a statistical artifact produced by difficult data? How willing are we to believe in a signal that lives at the edge of sensitivity, precisely where our instruments are most prone to deceive us? In that sense, the dark flow is more than a yes or a no, it is a case study in how a modern mystery is born. A bold hypothesis, a sophisticated method, a signal hovering near the noise, and then a community determined to dismantle it with the best tools available. If it survives, the world changes. If it does not, the world is not disappointed, it has learned where its blind spots lie. Even the most extreme version of the idea, linked to pre-inflationary structures or inhomogeneities beyond the horizon, remains as a reminder. The initial conditions of the universe are not a detail, they are part of the law. Inflation, if it occurred, stretched space at a dizzying rate, transforming small, causally connected regions into domains now separated by horizons. In that process it may have frozen in imprints that we perceive as statistical anisotropies. But to turn that suggestion into science, it must be tied to precise predictions, not to evocative speculation. That is why the next steps do not resemble a plot twist, but rather the slow tightening of screws. Larger cluster catalogs, better measurements of intracluster gas, X-ray and radio observations combined with ever cleaner maps of the cosmic microwave background, and above all future missions and cross-analyses capable of isolating the kinematic Sunyaev-Zeldovich signal without relying on a single filter or assumption. If a flow on enormous scales truly exists, it will have to emerge coherently in independent datasets, with compatible amplitudes and a stable direction. If it does not, then what we called a current will dissolve into a sum of local motions and statistical fluctuations, and the universe will return to appearing, on large scales, without a cosmic north or south. But even then, the question that captured us does not vanish. What lies beyond the boundary of the observable universe? Almost certainly more universe, in the simplest sense, more space, more matter, more galaxies. Not because it is romantic to say so, but because the boundary is defined by the travel time of light, not by a physical edge. If we cannot see beyond it, it is not because nothing exists there, but because the universe is large and old enough to separate information from reality. The true paradox is not that something invisible might be dragging us along. The true paradox is that the universe may be vastly larger than what we can ever know, and yet leave, in the faintest details of its primordial light, clues so subtle that they make us question the very direction in which we are moving. If you've made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.